Good evening. Welcome to another edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show. My name is Leon Jones, and I got a good one for you tonight here on the scam series. And I'm going to talk about smurfing. Now, if you think about it, smurfing is basically, it deals with money laundering. And where you may see some smurfing is trading. You could even see some campaign finance, money laundering as well, especially now that Kamala Harris has been basically raised as the Democratic nominee. And this is not about politics, but the left wants to do anything to stop Donald Trump from getting in power. And best believe there's going to be a lot of smurfing going on. I mean, it's going to be money coming from everywhere. Now, generally, when we deal with politics, there are two areas where money goes. For the Democrats, it's been around a little longer. It's Act Blue. That's where a lot of BLN money went. For the Republicans, you don't hear too much about it. Very small. It's called Win Red. Now, the problem with politics, there's a lot of money that's flowing in. And there are some people that are laundering money. Now, let me share my screen and let's talk about smurfing. All right. Basically, when we deal with smurfing, it's when someone launders money by breaking it up into several smaller sums and they utilize it so they won't be detected. You can also term smurfing as structuring. So, what happens during smurfing? The transactions are very small. And generally, money mules who use the smurfing method, what they're doing is they're avoiding suspicious activity reporting thresholds, which would naturally raise suspicion. In other words, if I go to the bank right now and I put in $200,000, now, of course, the FDIC insures up to $250,000. If I come in there with $250,000, there's going to be some suspicion. However, if I take that 250,000 and I break it up into 25 small sums, well, it's going to be hard to catch because I'm basically taking that money and putting it in different banks. Now, one must understand that an altogether different type of smurfing, as smurfing, is related to fraud in professional gaming and real money gaming, in which it means creating several user accounts to manipulate the platform or the rankings. Now, what is a smurf? And I'm not talking about the back in the days. I remember they used to call the Washington Redskins the Hogs and the Smurfs because there was a cartoon on called the Smurfs. Well, we're not talking about that Smurf. But what we are talking about when we deal with a Smurf is a money mule. And that's a person who launders money by smurfing. Again, they take large sums of money and they split it into smaller sums so they won't be tracked. Now, because of the unusual activity that it requires, smurfing is generally understood to be done by complicit or at least witting smiths, witting smurfs, not smiths, witting smurfs. Again, this activity is unusual activity. And Smurfing is generally understood to be done by complicit or at least winning smurfs per the FBI's categorization of money rules. Again, smurfing is sometimes also called kaku smurfing, and more so when it involves unwitting or unwilling participants. Now that you have the definition, how does it work? Well, smurfing is a type of money laundering done by money mules. I've just mentioned that a few times, who are in particular case also called smurfs. Now, the smurf receives illegally obtained funds. Then the smurf splits the funds digitally or physically into amounts just below the declaring, reporting, or alert threshold. The smurf also works alone or with others to launder. And when money is laundered, it's layered or mule, and the funds are working separately with each smaller sum. So once laundered independently, the sums can be consolidated into one account again if needed, and the funds are received by the criminal. Now, a simple description of smurfing comes from Europol, which is carrying sums just under the reporting threshold on a frequent basis, collectively amounting to large sums. Again, smurfing is also used to describe any unlawful or questionable breaking up of larger sums to escape detection. For instance, in 2016, the head of the USA's Transport Security Administration was removed for giving himself an improper bonus of $90,000. Hoping to hide this activity, the man in question, Kelly Coggin, had awarded himself 9 payments of $10,000 rather than one lump sum of $90,000, but he was eventually caught. Now, why is money laundering called smurfing? Of course, not all money laundering is smurfing, and not all money mules are smurfs. In the sense of breaking up large sums of money into smaller sums of money, and those smaller sums of money or multiple smaller sums of money to launder them, smurfing is not an illusion, but allusion. That's with an A. Allusion to the Smurfs from comic franchise, because they are also many, most identical and small. Now, this is all according to an NBC News article, which also notes that the person who coined the term was Gregory Baldwin, who was a lawyer based out of Miami. Now, other sources agree on the symbolism of smurfing, but point out that it was likely initially introduced in drug user slang, who would make small purchases of their preferred substances or drug making ingredients from several sources to then abuse them or use them to produce other drugs. Now, smurfing is also in iGaming. Now, it's setting up, and what is smurfing in iGaming? Well, basically, it's setting up secondary accounts to avoid the stats or status of your main account, no matter if it is allowed or not on the iGaming platform. Now, in the field of iGaming, including online casinos, betting, poker, and other real money games played online, which is equally susceptible to fraud, smurfing has an entirely different meaning. It is setting up secondary accounts for any reason, despite not being allowed to. And here are the reasons behind iGaming: to match a lesser skilled player without knowing your real skill. Again, to match a lesser skilled player without them knowing your real skill. To experiment and learn without damaging the stats of your main accounts. Also, when referring to multi-accounting in general as part of an attempt to fraudulently claim bonuses that you're not entitled to, and to facilitate other scams such as match betting or arbitrage, as most online real money gaming providers forbid more than one account per person. iGame smurfing is frowned upon or outright banned, but unlike smurfing in banking, it is normally not criminal activity. You see, when we deal with the laundering, that's criminal, but when we look at iGaming, it's not criminal. So we should note that this concept of smurfing also applies in multiplayer or online video games in general, where we see skilled esports players creating alt accounts to battle it out with less skilled players for various reasons, benevolent as well as malevolent. Now, here are some examples of smurfing and fraud. Smurfing is used widely as a safeguard against getting caught when attempting to launder money. For instance, example, former footballer Ryan McDowell was jailed in 2018. Again, former footballer Ryan McDowell was jailed back in 2018. Well, there are some people in 2024 who should get caught for money laundering as well, because it's still going on. But again, let me go back. Former footballer Ryan McDowell was jailed in 2018 for running a smurfing ring that laundered at least 692,000 pounds, which is equivalent to $931,270. In 2019, 3.6 pounds, which is equivalent to 4.84 million, found on 95 different bank accounts. It was identified as a result of smurfing. These funds had been deposited in several small transactions per Interpol. And also, you got criminals using crypto ATMs, smurfing, and bank drops as part of their MO. Were caught by the Spanish police and Europol in 2018, estimated to have laundered $11 million. Now, how to detect smurfing activity as a business. So, identifying and stopping smurfing in your organization largely depends on your sector. So, how to detect smurfing in banking and finance. Well, stopping smurfs in their tracks when it comes to banks, building societies, and financial organizations means having solid, got to know your customer, got to know your customer strategies in place, and implementing fraud detection. Nowadays, there are platforms on the market that can help companies with their AML efforts by harassing the power of fraud detection using machine learning and heuristics. Now, instead of employing manual document review workflows, which are costly and prone to human error, advanced solutions use techniques such as social media lookup, data enrichment, and device fingerprinting to reach conclusions and assign risk scores per user or per transaction. This allows risk analysts to make better and better informed decisions. Now, how to detect smurfing in iGaming and esports. And I'll leave the link at the bottom of my video description. So when we deal with iGaming and esports, because there's a lot of sports going on too, smurfing detection and prevention in online and competitive gaming focuses on strategies and tools against multi-accounting. These use IP analysis, phone number analysis, and email analysis. Moreover, device fingerprinting will generate and use browser hashes, device hashes, and cookie hashes to inform the gaming provider if multiple users use the exact same device for different accounts. Such activity does not indicate smurfing, but it is good to keep in mind and take into account when evaluating overall user behavior. Now, here's everything that you need to know up here. Verification, and I'll keep running this up. Again, you will see this link to this article at the bottom of my video description. Now, again, such activity does not indicate smurfing, but it is good to keep in mind and take into account when evaluating overall behavior. Again, they're using IP analysis, phone number analysis, email analysis, and device fingerprinting. And the suspicion is when you have multiple users who use the same exact device for different accounts. And, you know, that's money laundering. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I want to share some videos here about money laundering. And I just want to put up, these videos are being used for educational purposes only. So I don't want anybody striking my channel. My channel is not monetized. So what I'm doing, I'm using videos as a source of information so I can back up all of my articles. And I will put the fair use symbol also in my video description. So again, every video that I'll be using is for educational purposes only. This channel is not monetized. So what I'm going to talk about, let's go to smurfing. And this is from AML classes. Subscribe to this channel because this is information that you need to know.
Welcome to AML classes. What is smurfing and structuring? Smurfing and structuring are two terms commonly used in the context of financial transactions and money laundering. Let me explain each term. Smurfing. Smurfing refers to the practice of breaking down large financial transactions into smaller, less conspicuous transactions to avoid suspicion and detection by authorities. The term smurfing is derived from the cartoon characters called smurfs, who are small and blue, just like the small transactions that make up the larger whole. The purpose of smurfing is to circumvent the reporting requirements that financial institutions and authorities have in place to track and monitor transactions above a certain threshold. By keeping individual transactions below the reporting limit, typically set by laws and regulations, individuals or criminal organizations can avoid attracting attention and potentially hide the true source or purpose of the funds. For example, instead of transferring $50,000 in a bank account, a smurf might transfer $5,000 in 10 different accounts over a period of time to avoid scrutiny. The funds are eventually consolidated or transferred to the intended recipient, thereby disguising the source of the money. Smurfing is considered illegal in many jurisdictions because it enables money laundering and other illicit activities. It can involve splitting funds into multiple deposits or transfers, using multiple.
Again, it's very, very hard to track a large sum of money when you are breaking it up into small segments. Now, again, banks have a certain amount that you can deposit before the red flag goes off. Now, again, the term smurfing is also utilized in the drug game because there is a lot of product moving for a lot of money. Fair use for educational purposes. Let's continue.
Multiple accounts, involving multiple individuals, or conducting transactions through different geographic locations or financial institutions. Structuring. Structuring is a practice similar to smurfing but with a specific focus on avoiding reporting requirements related to cash transactions. Financial institutions are required to report cash deposits or withdrawals above a certain threshold to the authorities to prevent money laundering and other illegal activities. In the context of structuring, individuals or entities deliberately conduct multiple cash transactions in amounts below the reporting threshold to avoid detection. By splitting large cash transactions into smaller ones, they try to circumvent the reporting requirement. The underlying goal is to make the transactions appear legitimate, even though they are intentionally structured to avoid scrutiny. In summary, smurfing is a broader term that encompasses various methods to conceal illicit funds, whereas structuring is a specific method used to avoid reporting requirements by conducting multiple cash transactions below the threshold. It's important to note that both smurfing and structuring are illegal activities used in money laundering schemes. Governments and financial institutions have implemented strict regulations and monitoring systems to detect and prevent such activities, aiming to safeguard the integrity of the financial system and combat illicit financial flows. Thanks for watching.
And that is from AML classes. Now I'm gonna get into another one from AML classes. Remember that word I used? Cuckoo? Well, AML classes, and again, I'm gonna use their videos for educational purposes only. They're gonna tell you what money.
Welcome to AML classes. What is cuckoo smurfing? There is a method of money laundering known as cuckoo smurfing that is commonly used by criminals. This method is relatively simple compared to other forms of money laundering. Criminals use this method to move their money around the world. The word cuckoo in cuckoo smurfing comes from the cuckoo bird. It lays its eggs in the nests of other birds. These syndicates lay their illicit cash in the accounts of other innocent people. It involves professional remitters who swap the money of respective clients, thus allowing their clients to move the value of their money over vast distances without actually carrying anything of value across such distances. Imagine a scenario where A and B are people who want to move money in opposite directions, say from one side of China to the other side. Person A wants to send a gift to his parents. Person B needs to pay a supplier for goods he has purchased. They each need to send the same amount, but in the opposite direction. A and B do not know each other. Enter the services of X and Y, who are alternative remitters in the
You stop there. Now, you see all the money that is taking place? How do you know that some of the money isn't counterfeit money? Which I'm going to do a video on that because, believe it or not, there's still counterfeit money that's being transferred out there, but some of us don't know it. Some of us are not paying attention. But you see what's happening here? Money is changing hands. And this is what happens in politics. This is what happens with this is how the fat cats get big. They use certain systems that they create to launder money. Now, some of them get caught and some of them don't. That is a big felony, big jail time if you get caught. Let's continue their use.
respective cities. They know and trust each other. They are part of an extensive network of remitters. A makes payment to X, and B makes payment to Y. X then makes payment to P person, which is B's supplier of goods. And Y makes payment to Q person, which is A's parents. The cuckoo smurfing technique is a sophisticated form of money laundering that exploits the financial system's vulnerabilities and highlights the need for robust anti-money laundering measures to prevent financial crime. Thanks for watching.
Fair use. Now we're going to get into structuring and smurfing fair use, and this is from Golding and Golding International Tax Lawyers. I'm going to use this video for educational purposes only as well. Fair use.
Good afternoon, this is Sean Golding with Golding & Golding, here to discuss the basics of structuring and smurfing. These are two common types of crimes. Sometimes they happen inadvertently because the person just doesn't know it's a crime, but it's the idea of limiting deposits or spreading out deposits into the bank, other financial institutions to avoid detection. The two types of reports that are commonly made by the bank is the currency transaction report, CTR, suspicious activity report, SAR. So with structuring, what happens is a person limits how much they deposit into the bank at a certain time. Let's say they have $30,000 to deposit. Instead of making the deposit now, they deposit $7,500 a day over, let's say, every 4 days to avoid detection. That's structuring. There is no reason to avoid doing that other than a person doesn't want detection by the U.S. government. That is unfortunately a crime. When foreign accounts are involved, acronyms such as FBAR and FATCA come into play, which I'll go over a bit in a minute, and that increases the intensity of the investigation. Smurfing is a little different. With smurfing, what you're doing is, let's use an example, right? Examples make it easy. Let's say you had $15,000 and you wanted to deposit all on the same day, but you don't want the bank to report. So what you do is maybe you have 3 different people go to 3 different institutions and each of them deposit $5,000. That way, no bank is going to exceed the $10,000 currency reporting or currency transaction reporting, and then it also avoids suspicious activity because just somebody walks in and they deposit $5,000, it's not going to do anything. Now, one problem that we've seen, it's common when other attorneys come to our website and they kind of just take pieces and try to put it together, doing it correctly, and then try to scare the public. Not every split deposit is illegal. For example, let's say someone owns 4 different businesses and those businesses are 30 miles apart. Each one of these are cash businesses that are accurately reported, just they're cash businesses. So at the end of the day, the owner grosses up the income and splits it into 4 different bank accounts. Each one is next to one of these particular businesses. Well, that's not structuring. Splitting up deposits for your business purpose in and of itself is not a form of structuring. If you do structure or smurf, then you have to be careful of the different crimes that the IRS will try to enforce. Let's go through some of them. There's tax fraud and tax evasion, common. Now, when international is involved, you also have issues involving FBAR and FATCA. FBAR is foreign bank account.
And right here, as you see, they talk about structuring, which again is the process of limiting bank account deposits, reduce chances of CDR and SAR. Example of illegal versus illegal, FBAR, FATCA, and other offshore violations, and then breaks it down into smurfing, depositing small accounts into different accounts, avoid aggregate transactions existing $10,000, and oftentimes more related to money laundering. So you got to be careful of what's illegal and what's not illegal, because cash can cause a lot of suspicions. And also, if something is illegal, it's going to be hard to trace. Generally, when something is legal, most likely there's going to be a paper trail because of auditing for tax purposes. Fair use, let's continue. And I'm going to continue with examples of common crimes, starting with tax fraud and evasion. Fair use, this video is for educational purposes only.
Reporting. FATCA is Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act. You may have international wire transfer audits. And then when it comes to enforcement, the IRS, they can go after you with liens, levies, seizures, passport revocation. And quite frankly, even if the money's in another country, the U.S. has entered into so many different bilateral tax and enforcement, like FATCA treaties, that the chance of them being able to work or communicate with the foreign institution is much higher, especially if it's like a Citibank or something that is originally U.S. but has lots of overseas locations. If you're out of compliance and you want to get into compliance before the IRS catches you, there are various amnesty voluntary disclosure programs available. There's a traditional voluntary disclosure, which is where it takes out where OVDP left off. It's for people who were willful or cannot certify under penalty of perjury that they're non-willful. There's the streamlined filing compliance procedure. Streamlined filing compliance procedures if someone qualifies domestic and foreign. And there's also delinquency and reasonable cause. We have lots of free resources on our website, goldinglawyers.com. Again, my name is Sean Golding with Golding and Golding. Thank you for your time. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Now, you heard from professional lawyer. You've heard what a cuckoo smurf is. You heard what smurfing, what structuring is. Well, just continue to watch what's going on, particularly with the Democratic Party. Watch some of those donors. Are they writing all this off as a donation? I mean, if you think about it, politics, I know has a lot of this going on from both sides. Because you have both sides that are trying to get their candidate elected. Right now, it's difficult for Kamala Harris to get elected because she hasn't even been nominated. Now, of course, there's money pouring in overnight for her. Trump is getting his fair share of money as well. And when you have politics, you have sporting games, you have anything that's taken place that involves a lot of money, especially with these corporations out here, there's always a chance that there's going to be some money laundering going on. Now, as an innocent person, if somebody hands you a lot of money, be leery of it because they could be on the run. And if you get caught, you're going to go to jail. I mean, if you've seen all these movies that there's a lot of money, and there have also been shows that we've seen, particularly at the border, where you see a lot of drugs and a lot of money. Well, the biggest place is the drug game, where you will see a lot of money. And a lot of the money is cash money. Now, why is it cash? Because if you think about it, with smurfing and structuring, you don't see any credit cards, you don't see any checks. Why? Because a check, a credit card is a paper trail. And with money laundering, you don't use a paper trail. Why? Because a paper trail makes it very difficult to track your transactions. But I wanted to do this video tonight because I want everybody to watch what's going on in politics. Keep an eye on the donors and check out these donors. See if they're legitimate donors for both parties. Because there's a lot of money going to both candidates. Now, of course, again, for the Democrats, it's act blue. And for the Republicans, it's win red. But either way, if you look at really what's going on, it's about the money. A lot of people don't know that. And you have a lot of crony capitalists. See, the rules, because they make the rules for themselves, I have to follow the rules or I go to jail. Unless they get caught, the fat cats don't go to jail because they create a system. And again, money makes an honest man into a devil. But there are a lot of people who will do anything for money. They'll have that desperate attitude. You know, in the drug game, they have individuals that would give money to the kid, or somebody That's innocent. That person might get caught, might get shot. Meanwhile, this person is still running free. Why? Because he doesn't have the drugs, he doesn't have the money. When it comes to cash money, cash still rules. Because with cash, you can't track the transaction. Also with cash, it's very hard for the IRS to catch you as well. Why? Because in the end, not have a paper trail. And when you deal with cash money, smurf, you're just taking a large sum of money and you're breaking it down into small sums of money to avoid getting caught. But in the end, money laundering, it's a crime. Get caught, subjected to do a long time in prison. In the end, don't allow yourself to be scammed and do not get involved with money laundering. It is a serious crime and you have one life to live. Don't take a chance and lose your freedom because once it's gone, it'll be hard to get it back because you will be a lifetime convicted felon if you do come back. Now, some are able to get out there and make it. Once you've been in the pen for a long time, some people have a hard time making it when they get out. So beware of money laundering. It is a serious crime, and you will do some serious time. And that's my commentary for this edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show right here on YouTube. If you like what I just presented, please comment, share, and subscribe. And if you're looking for some STEM content, check out my second channel called the QCIS channel. On that channel, I give you a daily dose of science, technology, engineering, and math. And when I upload all my videos after recording them, they go to my Twitter page. Now, for the QCIS channel, since it's more of an educational channel, I also upload videos from the QCIS channel to my LinkedIn page. And in the end, always be blessed for what you have. Don't worry about what you don't have. Know that the sun always rises in the east and sets in the west. If it doesn't apply, let it fly. But if the shoe fits, wear it. If you don't like the shoe, change it. And once again, thank you for listening to this edition of the 411 Talk Zone radio show right here on YouTube. Till next time, my name is Leon Jones. You all have a wonderful and gracious evening. God bless you. I'm out.